There we go. The struggles are real, right? Trying to follow Jesus, trying to be close after our Savior, make disciples and make disciples, trying to follow, but we're kind of stuck in a self-centeredness. There's a selfie-centered world, if you will. Now, I went to a funeral recently, and it was an incredible celebration because it was one of the most compassionate men that I've ever known. His name was Joe Fonts, and he requested that a story be read at his funeral. And as that story was being read, I was going, I got to share that with others. I got to share that with the church. So I want to read this story that was read at a funeral of a friend of mine. It says, it was Christmas Eve, 1910, and General William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, was an invalid and near the end of his life. It was impossible for him to attend the Salvation Army's annual celebration. Someone near the general suggested that Booth send a telegram to be read at the opening of the convention to the many Salvation Army soldiers in attendance as an encouragement for their many hours of labor serving others through the holidays and the cold winter months. Booth agreed. Funds were limited and telegrams charged by the word, so to ensure as much money as possible would still go to help the needy, General Booth decided to send a one-word message. He searched his mind and reviewed his years in ministry, seeking the one word that would summarize his life and the mission of the Salvation Army and would encourage the soldiers to continue on. So when the thousands of delegates met, the moderator announced that Booth could not be present due to his failing health. Gloom and pessimism swept across the convention floor until the moderator announced that Booth had sent a telegram to be read at the start of the first session. He opened the message and read just one word. Others. Signed to General Booth. Others. How are we doing when it comes to how we consider others in a world that seems to be increasingly self-centered? How are we showing compassion to others? The scripture's full of insights about others. We could look at, we'll spend a little bit of time in Philippians, but if you want to get ready, we're going to be also in John chapter 4. Philippians would tell us this in Philippians chapter 2. If then there is any encouragement in Christ, any consolation of love, any fellowship with the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, make my joy complete by thinking the same way, having the same purpose, same love, united in spirit, intent on one purpose. So for us, when we talk about purpose, and you think about what's the purpose of this church? Maybe you're kind of growing up in a weird scenario in life and going, what is my purpose? What's my calling? What's my mission? Well, here at Northeast Baptist Church, we created a logo a couple years back that really would help remind us. When we see it, I hope that we have direction in our purpose. The arrow pointing up in our Northeast Baptist Church logo will remind us that we have a vertical relationship with the God who came down to us, but we lift up hands in worship to Him. We lift up worship to Him. We lift up our lives to Him. We want it going up to God. God, we love you that you came down to us. So it's the arrow going up. But then there's also the two arrows on the side. They're going out. We recognize when people ask Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? It's like, love the Lord your God and love others as you love yourself. So loving others, like these are the arrows out, not up or down. They're just out, recognizing we're all the same here. We all have the same intrinsic value, You're my brother. Mi casa es su casa. So we love God, we love others. We'll talk about serve with humility in a moment. Because Philippians 2 carries on. It says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourselves. And everyone should look not only to his own interest, but rather to the interest of others. So this is kind of the dilemma we come to. If we're going to love God and love each other, how do we get low and serve with humility? And the arrow pointing down doesn't mean that people are below us. It means that, no, we got to be a people who take a knee. Remember Jesus, when he had the Last Supper with his boys, he also washed their feet. He put a towel around himself. And he took a position of humility. So let us be a people of the towel. But how do we do that when there's so many hurdles, especially the hurdle of, I'm kind of stuck on my own interests. Because I live in a selfie-saturated world that says, you do you. Take care of yourself. So there's a study done from the University of Michigan. As I give a thumbs up from Ozzy and something else from Paul. But there's an interesting study done by the University of Michigan. They started this in 1979, and they've been studying the effects of, like, how well do people care about others? And so the study's been going on, and it shows in the studies that we today actually care 40% less than people did in the 80s. The study would ask questions like, rate this on a scale of 1 to 5, about this statement about yourself. I sometimes try to understand things better from others' perspective. And how you would rate yourself in that. And many questions like that. These surveys done over students over decades shows that we today care 40% less. And maybe that's not sinking in as much, and maybe you don't need it to sink in. You're going, I don't need a survey to tell me that. I drove here this morning. You know how many inconsiderate idiots are on the road out there? Are you really going to go across all of the lanes without a blinker while talking on your cell phone? Inconsiderate, inconceivable. We don't need a survey, we just need to drive a little bit. See, it seems like there's just so much less care for others. What happened to the compassion of General Booth, who leads the Salvation Army, that we would care for others? How are we going to get it back? It seems when we're so stuck about our vain conceit. Well, technology is not completely to blame, but I believe that some things in technology definitely contribute to our care less. We care less, so there's a conceit in that. So a few of the ways, like number one, I believe that we are obsessed with ourselves. Like technology contributes to this in a way that I have an addiction now, and I'm going to kind of go ahead and call it what it is. I have an addiction now that I didn't have a decade ago. Because a decade ago, I didn't really care about social media. I had a MySpace account. I checked it weekly, to come see, okay, cool, there's a thing. But now it becomes more of like that quick little hit of dopamine, those dopamine transmitters that tell me when people like the things that I did, or they like the picture I posted, or we'll post our service, today we're going to leverage the technology. We're on a platform. People are watching us online right now, live streaming. Hi, Donna. I know there's always two Donnas that watch online, so my aunt and then Donna Ryder. So there's a good chance if I say hi, Donna, I'll at least get one of them. So we use the technology, but I'm also addicted to the point of sometimes I just need to put the phone down. And the reason I know that I'm obsessed with the phone is because sometimes when the phone is not ringing at all, I still feel it vibrate in my pocket. You do too, don't you? The phantom vibration, like, wait, is that the phone? I've got to see this. Do they like me? Do the people really like me? I'm stuck with an addiction there. So I'm fighting that in ways, going, some days if you send me a message on Instagram, guess what? I'm not going to get that today, and I'm not going to answer it immediately, because I'm fighting this tendency to be so hyper-focused on myself. And I recognize if I'm on social media, I'm not necessarily looking at all of your lives, what's going on. I'm just reacting to how people have responded to my posts, because there's a little feel-good there. Right? It's a quick, easy hit of dopamine. So that's one of the ways that technology has contributed to our careless conceit. Another way is just the overwhelming exposure to suffering. It's desensitized us. If we're just scrolling through the different feeds of what's going on, and there's a need right here, and there's another need over there, it just feels like there's so many needs. I just can't contain them all or even begin to focus on them all. So just show me more pictures of cute puppies. Show me the stuff that makes me happy, because I don't want the sad stuff. I don't want the things that seem to bring me down. So we just kind of continue to keep on scrolling through because it just seems like there's too much suffering, so we can't handle it all. There's just an overexposure, so we become desensitized. Also, I would say that technology can certainly contribute to a lack of personal interaction, which just makes it easier not to care. I can just give you a quick thumbs up or the care emoji if you're struggling through a hard time, but really not take the time to pray, really not have to look you in the eye to see how you're struggling or anything. That's why I love it when we gather together in person. Is so helpful that we can love one another, encourage one another, all the one another's that happen better when we gather together in person. And so in light of technology in ways that it seems like we've become more self-focused, I want to talk about compassion. I'm going to try to teach something that's actually unteachable, I think, because compassion is more caught than taught. So now we open our Bibles to John chapter 4. Looking at verse 1 through 34. Jesus is going to launch into one of the longest conversations recorded. John records it. I'm glad John recorded it, because I think, not to compare the disciples' compassion, but it seems like John would be one of the more compassionate of the disciples, right? He's at the foot of the cross when Jesus is there. He takes Jesus' mother to be his own. Other disciples not as much compassionate, right? You would think Judas on the lower end of the scale there. So we get this recorded now from the Apostle John about Jesus. So when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard he was making and baptizing more disciples than John, though Jesus himself was not baptizing, but his disciples were, he left Judea and went again to Galilee. He had to travel through Samaria, so he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the property that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. And Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, worn out from his journey, sat down at the well, and it was about noon. Now a woman of Samaria came to draw water. "Give me a drink," Jesus said to her, because his disciples had gone into town to buy food. "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" she asked him. For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. And Jesus answered, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is saying this to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would ask him, and he would give you this living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you don't even have a bucket, and the well is deep. So where do you get this living water? You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? He gave us this well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." And Jesus said, "Everyone who drinks from this water will get thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never thirst again. In fact, the water I will give him will become a well of water springing up in him eternal life." "Sir," the woman said to him, "give me this water so that I won't go thirsty and come to draw water." "Go call your husband," he told her, "and then come back here." "I don't have a husband," she answered. "You have answered correctly, saying, 'I don't have a husband,'" Jesus said. "For you have had 5 husbands, and the man you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." "Sir," the woman replied, "I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews say that the place to worship is in Jerusalem." But Jesus told her, "Believe me, woman, an hour is coming, and you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, because salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Yes, the Father wants such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth." And the woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called the Christ. And when he comes, he will explain everything to us." And Jesus told her, I, the one speaking to you, am he. So when the disciples arrived, and they were amazed that he was talking with a woman, yet no one said, what do you want, or why are you talking with her? But then the woman left her water jar, went into town, and told the others, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah? They left the town and made their way to him. And in the meantime, the disciples kept urging him, Rabbi, eat something. But he said, I have food to eat that you don't know about. And the disciples said to one another, could someone have brought him something to eat? But Jesus said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me to finish this work. So in this reading from God's word, and I'm so thankful that we have more than just the words of Jesus, right? If it was just a bunch of his lessons and good quotes and top tips to do what to do when you're down, like no, he's showing this. He's helping us to catch this. He's not just teaching, but he's bringing. Like I said, this is more caught than taught. Jesus at work here is showing us compassion. So it's incredible, beautiful, powerful compassion. It's focused on others, right? So Jesus saves the others, and we're so glad because we're part of the others now. The woman at the well, she ran immediately with good news. Even though she had been persecuted among all the people because she was a woman with a poor reputation, someone who seemed like she had been sexually exploited in ways where she's just had 5 husbands, and now she's just living with a guy that's not her husband. There's a lot of deep depression, a lot of guilt there, and it would seem that Jesus should show compassion to her in a way, but instead he brings that point up. But she recognizes that he's the Messiah, and she runs to go tell the others. And it's almost like Jesus was counting on her to do just that. So I knew you'd go share. I knew that when you finally found living water, you couldn't contain it to yourself, but you got to go share with the others. But wouldn't it seem that the most insensitive thing would be for Jesus to bring up the thing that she's most ashamed about? The reason that she comes to the well, which is like the old school water cooler, the place where people would all gather together, the old school version of social media where the people, gather and share. And she comes when there will be no one else there because she doesn't want to feel the shame, and Jesus brings her shame right there in that moment. And so there's something I think fascinating about compassion. And some recent studies done about the most compassionate people, and you might think that they will all be the most compassionate people are the people of faith, and that's partly true, but it seems also the people with the biggest range and long lives of compassion are the people that set some boundaries in place in the compassion. Example would be yesterday we're serving at Sam Ministries, and I'll get to some pictures and some more stories of that in a minute. But part of my job was to just pick up all the trash that gets on the floor. And I recognize there is a plethora of water bottles that keep on finding themselves on the ground again. Why are there so many water bottles on the ground? Well, it's because there's one mom, and I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt that she's doing the best she can, and she got 5 kids, and those kids are just continually grabbing a water bottle, taking a sip, and then splashing each other with them. Go back, get another water bottle, maybe not take a sip, and they were having a little water fight with the water bottles. So I have to step in here now going, okay, me being compassionate is not necessarily being nice, it's being loving. If you keep doing this, we're going to run out of water, and it's hot. And I don't want you getting in trouble or hurting someone. So the compassionate thing to do is, hey, that's your last water bottle. If you splash it, no more. And then guess what happened? When the next water bottle got splashed, I had to cut them off from the water. No water for you. I'm the water limiter now. And was that compassionate? Absolutely. That was compassionate with boundaries. A researcher and Professor Brene Brown wrote a book on compassion boundaries, and she used an example in her life stories of she has a big Christmas party every year, and she invites all the friends. And the last year she had the party, one of her friends had way too much to drink, and it made everyone uncomfortable. She was a messy drunk. And so she wants to invite that friend to her party again, not just cut her off and say, you're excluded, you can't come to the party. But she said, hey, this year, I want you to come to my party. I love you, I love your family, I want you to be at the party. But this year, don't drink at all. And the friend goes, yeah, I know last year it got out of hand, so like this year I'll tone it way back. I'll just drink a little. She says, no. And the compassionate thing to do. I'm saying, I want you to come to the party. I don't want you to drink at all. So is that an acceptable boundary? I would say yes. And so Jesus is doing the same thing with the woman at the well in a way, because she's trying to dodge the truth at stake here, that he is the living water. He's the way and the truth and the life. He is the Messiah. And she starts an argument on the misinformations. I think misinformation might be one of the deadliest things just promulgated by social media in some ways, that we can take any false thing and just make it all into truth to where we all become conspiracy theorists of some degree. And she tries to throw that mess at Jesus. Hey, they said we should worship over here, but y'all say we should worship over there. And Jesus doesn't take the bait because he knows it's not about geography. It's about the heart. And so the compassionate thing for him to do is to say, no, God's looking for worshipers that will worship him in spirit and in truth. I'm not going to buy into this little petty argument you're trying to get into. I'm trying to get to the core of what's really most important. And God knows you and he loves you. And so we've got to have compassion boundaries, because if we don't, have you heard this term, compassion fatigue? I think to some degree we all got hit with compassion fatigue through the recent years, because there's just so many needs and so many struggles. I'm going, I can't do them all. And I'm hurting myself. I haven't been very compassionate to myself because the negative voice just keeps getting louder and louder and louder. And eventually compassion fatigue just gets you to give up and become apathetic, going, I don't care about anyone now. Meh. But when we catch this from Jesus, we catch this now, and I take us back to a fun word that's hard to say. In the Greek, this word for compassion, splechnasmai. Practice it all week, and I think I still got it wrong. Splach, and it's got the in there. I think the Greek language is so beautiful, and the Hebrew too. Why does it throw so many is in there? That's just not a pleasant sound to make. But splachnizmai, I got it once, I'll just stick with that. I got it right once. The splachnizmai is not just like you have empathy for someone or your heart goes out for them. It's deeper than that. It's like, it's to have your bowels yearn. Because the ancients believed the deep-seated place of emotion was not necessarily the cortisone, not the heart. It's like, it goes deeper than that. I love you from all of my guts. Have you ever had your bowels yearn, or his heart sank into his stomach? When we get the hard news, things gotta go numb, and it hits us right here in the bowels. So compassion then is not just to hurt for someone, but it's to hurt with that someone, and them to be moved to action. True compassion always is followed by action. Not just click a button or to shoot up maybe a little prayer, but it's let's do something with this. This is what Jesus has done. Every time you see the phrase, Jesus was moved with compassion, he then healed someone or fed someone or gave them life. When Jesus is moved with compassion, what about us? When we get moved to compassion. So I got to see it on display a little bit yesterday. So man, everyone just using what God has given them. If you're good at music, we're leading music. And Glennis, I'm assuming that as you're looking at your phone right there, you're not checking your Facebook status. You're probably looking at lyrics, right? Okay, so like, wow, Glennis, way to lead worship while doing the social media at the same. No, you're using the technology platform. Going, hey, I've got lyrics right here on my phone too. So just thank you to the band and just moving in ways. And then James is great with the camera. So man, he's using what he's got. Not because look at the pictures I take. It's going, hey, God gave me a gift, and by compassion, I want to be able to capture this so that we can share this. And my goodness, Queen Beth Miles, I love just how incredibly organized it was. And that's what people would tell me as I was trying to meet as many people from SAM and the leadership of the SAM ministries. And they go, oh, this is so well organized. And I try to give Beth credit. She goes, no, everybody just knows their place. We put a good team together, and everyone knows how to step in to show compassion so that compassion can move better when there's good, healthy boundaries of knowing, our roles. And so we did crafts and arts, and I like to get dressed up for work some days, so I got to get dressed up yesterday. It's just powerful when we get together to serve. And as best as I could tell, I didn't see a single person serving out of obligation. Well, I got the email or invite. Guess I better go. It was just a joy. We knew it was a joy. And Saturdays are precious, right? Man, we love our Saturdays. Either just to watch sports or to clean stuff at home or to go pursue our hobbies. Like Saturday's a hobby day going. This is a pretty majority of the day event, and it was spent with compassion in action. So some opportunities coming up. Like I'm moving the announcements not to the end of the service. Like let's just put the announcement right in the sermon time. Let's preach the announcements. Like what's going on, and if there's ever anything going on in our church that doesn't have some capacity roots to compassion, well then it's probably not worth doing necessarily, I would say. So a few things that we can get involved in. And maybe you don't do all of them, but you find the ones that really strike at you the most. And if you go, there's nothing the church is doing that really meets my unique giftings, hey, then don't wait on the church to give you permission to do it. Just go do it. Use what God has given you, right? So a few ways we'll recognize our church is uniquely located right across the street from a high school. So this last month we had an opportunity. We set up a booth and a little tent, pop-up tent, and we serve snacks and food, and we're going to do that again. We're going to do that on November 2nd. If you got questions about that, you can go see Steve and Donna, and we'll give you some information on. We're just going to be able to bless the neighbors and bless the students as they get out of school. Strike up those conversations that can hopefully lead to better opportunities that we can get to know each other, care for others. There's a Pastor Strong 5K. There's a walk or run. You don't have to run the whole thing. That's coming up on Saturday, November 6th. So there's several churches coming together. This is part of the San Antonio Baptist Association annual hunger walk. And so it's a win-win-win opportunity, I believe. It's a win because it's helping pastors who, by studies, are a very unhealthy group, physically and emotionally in a lot of ways. Just the stress and stress eating. So we're trying to do things to help pastors get moving and healthy. So that's a win. And it's a win because we're helping to raise more funds. All the proceeds from this 5K go to help local food banks. So that's a win. And it's a win that we're being able to reach out to some people who would never step foot into a church, but they'll step foot onto a 5K course, especially because there were some generous donations where there's quite a bit of prize gift cards attached to this. So some of San Antonio and surrounding areas' fastest runners will be there. So it's going to be a win-win-win opportunity. Why do we do this? Not because your pastor likes to race and he wants to show off, because I might not be showing off, might be a little slow this time. It's been a long time since I raced, since COVID. But that it is an opportunity for us to serve others. Potluck business meeting. That's compassion? Yes, because it's compassion with good boundaries. We come together and we organize, what is God doing? How do we serve best? How do we allocate the funds that have been trusted to us for the best bang for the buck with compassion? Another thing, you see the boxes get on the front lobby table. We keep doing it every year. Are we doing it again? Absolutely, because Operation Christmas Child is an opportunity for us to fill boxes. They're going to go around the world, and each of those boxes gets a Bible put in as well, so we can tell people about the love of Jesus Christ. So we do that with compassion. We'll watch a video in a little while to kind of give us some more information about Compassion International. You can know on the dates when we bring those in. I talked to a lady last week, and she's part of the Well Community Church that meets in our facilities. And she was saying, this is true because I saw one of my very own friends received a box, and that's how she trusted Christ. So just ways to show compassion. I'm going to get a microphone for my wife, because the next thing is something we can do out of compassion and sharing in letters.
Actually wanted to add something about Operation Christmas Child. It's sponsored by Samaritan's Purse, and Compassion International also has the same thing. If you have someone that you want to get a Christmas gift for, but you don't know what to get them, Samaritan's Purse and Compassion International have where you can buy a chicken or a water well or pay part of a water well, or you can get a goat, which is, I like goats, things like that for someone, instead of getting them a Christmas gift that they truly don't need because they already have everything. So for the person you don't know what to get a gift for, or for someone who has a truly compassionate heart, consider getting a gift of a goat or a chicken or something like that, or a water filter through Compassion International or Samaritan's Purse, because those would be great compassionate gifts. You can look on their websites to get more information. We also have the catalogs at home. We could bring them if you want to look at them. So just something else to consider as we enter the gift buying season, because you can't get gifts online in time anyway. So the letter writing thing is also more than just the letter writing. It's also calling. We have so many family members, church family members, who are like my grandmother. They are homebound, and they depend on their friends and family to take them places. And for example, my grandmother saves every card that she gets and puts it on display. And when you go to visit my grandmother, the first thing that she wants to do after she hugs you and kisses you with her nice wet lips is she wants to show you every card that she has gotten, because they are on display. And she is pretty much blind and can't read it, so she wants you to read it to her, although she practically has it memorized because they are so precious to her. And so those cards that she receives are, to say that they are meaningful is an understatement. They mean the world to her. And she can't really hear, even with her hearing aids. So I'll be honest, I have not called my grandmother in a while, because when I try to call her, I go outside and I have to yell, and she still can't hear me. They can hear me inside yelling at my grandmother, and she still can't hear me, even with her hearing aids. So calling her is fruitless, except that she knows that I called her at least. But I can write to her, or I can go visit her. But you know how that goes as well. And so the cards are ultimately the most important things to her. So what I'd like to do for our church family who are homebound, and many of them are also widows or widowers, and so they are by themselves, is I would like to start a phone calling for those who are not like my grandmother and still have their hearing, or letter writing campaign. So I would like, if you're interested, for you to email me, and yes, I do need you to email me because I'm making an email list. I would like for you to email me that you're interested, and I'm going to make a list of, my hope is that every homebound or widower would have more than one person assigned to them, so that you can write or call them every couple of weeks. If it's their birthday, Christmas, Thanksgiving, special holiday, they'd get an extra card, just so that they know that they're not forgotten just because they're not here, just so that they know that they are still loved and appreciated, and that they are still a valued, important member of our church family, even though they're not here in person, and that they feel like they are still appreciated, and that they know that they're being thought of, even though they're not here in person. And those cards, I can't stress how important they will be. When you let me know that you're interested, I'm going to send out instructions, things not to say, things that would be good to say. You don't want to overshare, but you can share. So anyway, I'll send out more information. That's why I do need your email. So please don't tell me after church, oh, I'm interested. Just email me, okay? And I think I'll give you my email address. It's on a slide, I think. Do you have that?
Not right now.
No. I'll give it to you. Tell me you're interested, and I'll give you my email. Okay,
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thanks, beautiful. And so a few other things coming up in the future, like future months. Re-engage is our marriage ministry, and so when we talk about being like moved to the bowels, I just hurt so much when marriages are hurting, and so I always want to be a part of helping marriages, especially after the holiday season. Seems like we go through a really rough patch with marriages. So Re-engage will be offered starting February 6th, and so will another round of Financial Peace University, because we have compassion for those who are struggling in ways, and we got some great insights. The Bible is full of incredible insights for marriages and your finances. And then one more thing, because there's plenty more, but we go on and on, but one of the things you might see as you drive up every week, Ken Scott and the crew from Churchill High School built this really cool blessing box with Jonathan, and Paul helped put this thing together that neighbors walking by can just take what they need and give what they can. So there's a beautiful opportunity for our neighbors just to get food or to get toiletries. That's what I need you to also just continue to help stock it, because it's not stocked as much as it was at first when we saw it and it was new. So if you would, when you're buying your groceries, buy an extra couple toothbrushes or extra couple things to add to the blessing box. It is truly a blessing to our neighbors. We got a thank you card from one of our neighbors anonymously, just how much that box means to them, that they don't have to come ask for. They can just on the honor system come and be blessed. So really just good opportunities as we move forward and as we're about to just kind of close our time. I always want us to take a moment and reflect and respond. Not just like, okay, I think he's about to be done preaching, so we can get out of here and go get lunch. But no, if we fail to take time and see what God is saying to us, then we have not been called to action. We haven't utilized the compassion the way that God would have us to. So let's take a moment and kind of get still, and before we pray, we ask a few questions. Like, what would you do if you just had one day to show compassion? And how have you noticed that people just don't seem to care as much as they used to? Or maybe how have you noticed that you don't seem to care as much as you once did? And how has serving and caring for others impacted your life?